it's weird that it depressed me. I was depressed by the backlash to Austin Rivers' claim that there were 30 NBA players who could play NFL, because it was such a low stakes claim to me. And I believe it's probably pretty true. And he didn't say I could have played in the NFL.
He did not.
It's just something he said. And it got so vicious and personal in the back and forth with the NFL players and him that it just had me going, bro, this isn't even about politics or something where people get irrational about it. And this is ugly, where I think it was it James Jones? I don't know the name on Fox Sports, who was going after Rivers, and then Rivers does a very nasty response to Jones over how his career meant nothing and he didn't make any money. And I'm just looking at it. I'm going, man, we just can't have normal takes anymore. What's going on?
Rivers is like the perfect person for that situation, because people just assume the only reason he played in the NBA is because of his dad. So I think a lot of the vitriol that he received in that is like, why are you even talking? Even though we know Austin Rivers was the best high school player in his class. He went to Duke. He was the leading scorer. Like, he's got all these things that he did to end up in the place that he ended up. And he played 11 years in the league and whatever else. What would have been nice is if Austin was either like internally able to manage this enough and came back with just the chillest response and did not like go after this guy at all. Right. Like, just kind of like, this is what it is. This is the reason I said this. This is where it comes from, and left it at that. But like, I don't know if he's incentivized to do that. Like, it doesn't make sense for in our current media landscape for him to actually like operate in that way.
He should have done a self-deprecating show up at one of the football team's OTAs trying to make the team kind of video.
Chad Powers.
That's what Amin would have done.
Chad Powers.
That's what Amin would have done.
Yeah. Amin's good at that. Amin is built different, man. He doesn't ignore the hate like Chuck does, but he almost thrives on it. And it's this energy that he converts into a different kind of resource. I feel that probably would have been the better way to handle it for Rivers. I just also thought it was just kind of silly. I mean, I think it's true. I think it's just about economics. That's my position. We're having a take on this take that is still going, by the way. An NFL player on television confronted Austin Rivers about how disrespectful his take was. That take is completely correct. It's just about money and about status. If you want to make more money and be more famous, the NBA is the place to do that. So there's going to be a cohort of athletes who will play NBA because they're not going to get broken, and they're going to get more famous, and they're going to make more money. So they're going to play in the NBA rather than go to the NFL. And I just think that's how it goes.
The injury aspect of it is just like the part that is just completely left out. Like, you could make more money and not get hurt, and guaranteed money and not get hurt. Of course you're gonna choose the other. It's like, when they would have these football versus baseball choices, like, why did this quarterback all of a sudden become a baseball player? Because he's never going to get hit.
That's how much the Oakland A's suck, by the way, that Kyler Murray decided, instead of playing for the A's, to become a quarterback and get chased around. But in all seriousness, I think quarterback's the different one, because with quarterback, the status and the money is like enough that, and they protect the quarterbacks now more these days than when Charlie Ward decided to play for the Knicks. I don't know if Charlie Ward could have even played in the NFL. That's a whole other conversation. I mean, what was funny about it to me was that the NFL players lashing out at Austin Rivers were making his case for him in a way that they didn't seem to really grasp. They would go, you think you could play in the NFL? You think that NBA players could handle this training camp where they abuse us and it's 120 degrees and you don't get paid money and the coach is screaming at you? And I'm looking like, yeah, that's why they're playing in the NBA, even though they're good enough to play in your league. That's why.
And if they didn't have the choice to play in the NBA, they would put themselves through that. because they'd have to make a living. What other thing could they do to make that much money? Of course they would do it. So
well, now this is the conversation of which guys. I think Anthony Edwards, I don't know what he would play. I feel like he loves football. I'm not sure what position, but
tight end is like the default for NBA guys. Like there's been a lot of former college basketball players that were excellent tight ends. So I think that's the space that you would most commonly see some of these athletic guys end up at. I think LeBron played tight end, right? Or was he a receiver?
I would love to see. I think he was a receiver, but he would probably project as a tight end. I would love to see Jokic as a 7 foot tall, extremely bored left tackle who he hates his job even more than he does at the NBA level, which you don't buy, by the way. Nate thinks that Jokic is lying to all of us about how much he hates his job.
He doesn't hate. That's absolute crap. You cannot be brilliant in the way that he's brilliant in basketball without loving it. You can't.
I disagree.
I think that you can be, just from being around, there's guys that can put the ball in the basket that don't love it, but he has a creativity to his game that does not develop without a pure love of the game. I don't think there's ever been a creative player on his level that hasn't been a gigantic fan of the game. And that's not to say that he doesn't love horses more, but he fucking loves basketball. There is no doubt about that in my mind.
I mean, I think about the opening scene of The Bear, which really hit for me as a creative person, as a producer, as someone who's turned something they like into something that is their job, which is just because I love something doesn't make it fun. And I think Jokic might love being competitive, and I think he might love playing basketball, but I don't think it's fun for him to go to work every day and hoop. That's the difference. And it's like, when you do something long enough, when you do something as a career, when it consumes your life, it loses some fun. I mean, Anthony Edwards is the complete opposite, right? He's clearly having fun. He's having the time of his life. And I don't think Jokic does. And I like that. I respect that. I connect with that. While it might not be marketable and fun for the league, it's fun for me as a tortured artist who understands that, like, just because you're good at something and you have to do it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best time.
Maze is onto something there. And I'm reminded of how many great writers, top tier writers, hate writing and are perhaps at their most eloquent when describing how much they hate writing, how much they dread it. Michael Moynihan has been on the podcast, talked about it. I don't have the examples ready, but at one point in the Fifth Column podcast, he rattled off a bunch of famous, incredible writers who hate writing, which I don't feel that way about writing. So I was surprised to hear that, but that's a thing. I think there are people who love doing the thing, and there are people who love having done the thing. And maybe Jokic is a guy who loves having done the thing and finds fulfillment in that.